Hey guys, Stacking here again with another edition of Dark Power. Before we get started, as always, hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Helps us, helps you. We're going to get straight into it. As you know, this week I will be starting to cover Impact Wrestling. So bear with me if you are joining me from Blunt Impact with Chris. I'm still learning some of the guys' names, some of the girls' names. A lot of them I know, but I'm jumping into some of these storylines cold. Tried to do a little bit of research, but I'm jumping into a lot of it cold. So bear with me as I get my footing and I get to where you guys are, being the proud supporters of Impact Wrestling that you are. First, we're going to start off with NWA. There was actually no episode of Carnyland this week. Instead of that, they did a kind of a recap of different matches, historical matches that involved Tim Storm, and also we got to meet Mama Storm. If you were following the NWA before Powerrr, you know that there was a time when he was the NWA World's Champion that they had Mama Storm were able to introduce her. So it's not really meeting her for the first time, but for a lot of us, it is meeting her for the first time, right? I only started watching NWA again when Powerrr started, so I had never met Mama Storm. Tim Storm is by far one of the best baby faces in wrestling today. I would say he's got to be at the top, near the top of my list. I still would put Cody over him, Moxley over him. On Powerrr itself, maybe you could make an argument for. Actually, no, you really can't. It's really him. He is the top babyface on NWA Powerrr, because Marty, to me, isn't really an NWA person. He's more of a Ring of Honor person that's in the NWA for right now. Whether that continues, who knows, but it's really Tim Storm who is that top babyface. So, this is a meeting between he and his mother. He goes home to Pine Bluff to visit her, talk with her, answer some fan questions that are for her. There's a kind of a funny moment where he answers a question that Lance Archer asks. I guess when they've had a lot of matches, Lance has gotten color. If you're watching BTE and you pay attention to the things that Matt Hardy is explaining to us from the multiverse, you learned a lot about color, gigs, blading, all that sort of thing, tag matches, all that fun stuff. But Lance, I guess, has a tendency whenever he works a match with Tim to get busted open. So he wanted Tim to ask Mama Storm why Tim busts him open almost all of those matches. And Mama Storm had a great response. Well, he probably deserved it, which, knowing Lance Archer, the Murder Hawk, he probably did. But it was a really good interview. Tim Storm, again, top shelf babyface. Great person to watch, great person to listen to. You heard a lot about his history. You heard a lot about his past, and you were able to connect with him. And that's one of the things that NWA does very well. You are able to learn a lot about who these performers are, who these wrestlers are, who their characters are. And you're able to connect with them on a real level. And that's something that I hope I will be able to do going forward as I start reviewing Impact. Look at that transition. Killing it. At least I think I am. So this week's episode of Impact has a lot of important matches that are happening, a lot of important segments, most important of which is the main event, which is supposed to be Ace Austin versus Trey to determine the finals for the number one contender for Tessa Blanchard's Impact World title. Now, quite separately, as you know, Moose has brought back the TNA World title, and he is claiming that he is the TNA World Champion. It's a title he never won, and I don't know where he found that belt. I don't know if that's been explained already. I need to do a little bit of digging on that, but he's walking around with that title. So Impact itself starts with a tag team match in the Knockouts division between Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz versus Kylie Ray and Susie. Now, I've had the extreme joy and pleasure of seeing Kylie Ray wrestle a matches. She is the current Freelance World Champion. Freelance is what I would consider my home promotion, Freelance versus the World. Freelance Wrestling here in Chicago, and she is the current World Champion. Doing a great job. When Freelance comes back after all the COVID stuff, I hope to be right there watching her defend that title. Tasha Steelz, hey, that's somebody from NWA Powerrr. As you guys remember when SP3 was on here to cover that super power and super episode of Dark, he brought up that Tasha Steelz had signed with Impact, so it's great that, in a way, I was watching her on Powerrr, and I'm going to be able to watch her on Impact. That's always a great thing. Now, Susie, I know a little bit of the storyline of what was going on there with Su Yung and her transition from the Undead Bride to what's going on now. I'm still learning about that. Kiera Hogan's a talent that I know well. This is a strong match to start the overall card out, start the overall show, whet your appetite, get you started. Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz picking up the win over Kylie Rae and Susie. After this, we have Moose talking with Ace Austin. Ace is in the finals of this tournament to determine the number one contender, and what Moose is trying to say is, why would you go after the Impact World title and Tessa when you could have a phenomenal match against me for the TNA World Championship? Now, there's no official recognition of Moose as a TNA World Champion, which wouldn't make sense in the sense that the title that he is holding or claiming to hold is Tessa's title. It just changed names and changed belt designs. So I don't know. I mean, whether or not winning, by virtue of winning the tournament, whether or not Ace could say, I want a title shot at that belt, when that belt is the belt that Tessa holds. What are we talking about? It's wrestling. You guys know what this is going on. There's going to be some kind of unification match at some point down the road, or Moose is going to keep claiming that he is, the real world champion. Maybe it's a play off of what happened with Matt Taven last year with he is the real world's champion. We'll see. After this, we have Joey Ryan, or Joseph P. Ryan, with his new cancel culture character, at least new for me. I had I was at All In when he came out after the Janela Hangman match, so I know a good bit about Joey Ryan. But he's now doing a cancel culture character, and he wins a match over Crazy Steve, where he has Jake Crist on his side. After the match, it looks as though the other Crist brother, Dave Crist, is going to join cancel culture, or at least that's what it appears. And going forwards, I'm interested to see what exactly these guys are, what exactly the characters are. And this is something I gotta look into a bit. I want to learn more, because I haven't watched Impact in a while. I want to learn more about what is going on with why they're not with Sami Callihan anymore. I understand this ICU character, or what's going on in a sense with Sami, but I got to go back and do a little bit of digging. So bear with me, guys, while I flounder around, as I said when we started off this video. But after this is Rohit Raju versus Stevens. He gets a win over Stevens. I didn't follow the match too much. I don't know either of these guys very well, but what it seemed to me was that this match was kind of a setup to more about the after the match segment, which is where Rhino sneaks into the ring and gets a nice gore on Rohit Raju. There's a storyline building with Rhino, I guess, losing control or just losing his mind. We'll see what happens with this. Rohit Raju, I mean, I'm Indian, so that's the guy that I want to learn more about. I didn't really know too much about him before I watched this. Kind of interested to see what's going on with this. After this, there's a nice segment. This is something that I gotta say I've missed, because Powerrr hasn't been around, and Dark is just match after match after match, is backstage segments. And it's kind of cool, because on this week's Dark, as we will find out very soon, there are backstage segments. But it was nice to have that kind of come back with a kind of planned out show that's a weekly kind of show, which is what Dark's building towards. So one of this segment is Locker Room Talk with Madison Rayne and Johnny Swinger. And they're talking to Chris Bay, and it's kind of a build as to why Johnny Swinger's talking for Chris Bay, and he's saying that they're going to be in a tag team match together next week. So they're setting things up for next week, which is always good with a show, because Dark is just kind of a series of matches. Powerrr has storylines, but I'm excited, as I said, to have things that are going to be doing week to week, month to month builds of storylines. And speaking of which, Jordynne Grace is here for a promo segment. She's here to talk with Taya Valkyrie, who's saying that Jordynne should not have taken time off as champion. So Jordynne says, hey, let's have a match right now. Taya Valkyrie begs off. So Grace says, you know what, let's do this next week. Title will be on the line. So that's our Impact Knockouts Championship. There will be a title match next week, Taya Valkyrie versus Jordynne Grace, title on the line. After this, there's another tag match where the Rascals go over TJP and Fallah Bahh. To me, it was a pretty good tag match, nothing crazy to write home about. It's something to keep everybody moving after 2 back-to-back segments. And after this, there's another segment where we're talking about Deonna Purrazzo, the Virtuosa, who was recently released from WWE NXT. She is now with Impact, and she will be in action next week. After this, Michael Elgin is in the ring calling out ICU Sami Callihan, and instead of getting him, he gets Ken Shamrock. There's kind of a back and forth, and it looks like they're building something there too, which is, again, I'm jumping into these storylines, trying to understand what's going on. Bear with me, guys. So I'm interested to see what caused the confrontation between Shamrock and Elgin when Elgin seems to be kind of mad at Callihan more than Shamrock. So we'll see what goes there. Finally, our main event. This was a really good match. To me, I'm kind of seeing I know Trey. Oh, sorry. Before I get there, Trey is supposed to be in this match. They find him knocked out backstage. Ace says that he should just automatically win. And instead, they're going to let Wentz from the Rascals be in the match, and he's going to step up for his friend. Now, you're already rooting for Wentz. You got a guy knocked out, friends stepping up. Let's see what can happen. Maybe if they have Wentz win, then there's some kind of issue between him and Trey, whether or not who gets the actual title shot. Well, I won it. I got to the finals, but I'm the one who actually won the match, right? Kind of that whole back and forth. Not to be, though, because Ace is going to be the one who pulls out the win after a pretty solid back and forth match. I've seen Ace Austin before. I've seen the Rascals before, but it's good to see them in the ring for somebody who doesn't normally watch like that, because it's just great to see that kind of style that meshes pretty well together, go back and forth. But what I think is really cool is what happens after the match. So we know that Ace Austin wins, and we're already kind of looking towards Slammiversary, because maybe that's when Ace is going to get this title shot, and Impact plays a promo video, which is how Impact's going to end, where they are talking about and alluding to all of the people that WWE let go, whether it's Rusev, whether it's Drake Maverick, who they didn't actually let go, whether it's EC3, whether it's the Good Brothers, all of those people, all of the many, many people who were let go from WWE or NXT, they get, a lot of the big names get a little bit of a reference in this promo video to say that you never know who could show up in Impact Wrestling, and one or more of these people is coming to Impact Wrestling, but the only way to find out will be to watch Slammiversary. And I thought that was kind of cool. That's a really great way to help hook for the show. It's something that an Impact fan can talk to a WWE fan about. If the WWE fan doesn't really know that much about Impact or doesn't really watch Impact like that, they can say, hey, did you like Rusev? Hey, did you like EC3? Did you like Machine Gun Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows? Well, they might be coming to Impact. Well, what's Impact? It's a great way to build viewership, build subscribers, and build attention for a pay-per-view that is one of the larger brand name pay-per-views for Impact Wrestling, and is going to be important for the company just in general, because maybe by then, it's in July, right? Maybe by then people are able to come back to shows, and that'll really help build a pay-per-view. When you have people in attendance, now you're having that former WWE wrestler debuting as an Impact superstar. It'll be kind of cool to see that with that whole arena effect of a crowd. An arena effect of crowd is something that always helps. Any show, any match, anywhere. Having empty arena shows can be difficult. And that's one of the things that AEW has worked hard to combat by having AEW talent be ringside, making noise, being vocal, getting involved in matches in the case of Britt Baker, and that always holds true of them being present ringside for this week's episode of AEW Dark. So, this week's episode is not as large, not as long as the previous episodes, so that kind of buffet of matches is now maybe starting to dwindle. This is the first one where we've had fewer than 8 or 9 matches. And we actually had one that was cut when a certain wrestler, whose name I will not say, made some comments. There were some issues there. He was supposed to face Shawn Spears. That match got scrubbed from Dark. But matches that we did get to see, we start off with Billy Gunn over Skyler. John Skyler, good match. Billy Gunn still got it. Using him well. I want to see where they go with Billy Gunn because he's not somebody that they're going to be putting titles on. I don't think so. Maybe he gets a tag title run with his son down the road. The Gun Club, getting the tag belts, father and son storyline. But I don't really see him being a TNT champion or an AEW world champion. So I'm interested to see how they use him to progress other wrestlers and help get them over. And in order to do that, Billy Gunn needs wins. And in order to do that, you might as well stack wins for him now when you can, and people are more willing to swallow it because talent aren't facing people who are necessarily brand name talent, right? So that's always smart. Next, after this, we have Butcher and Blade versus Joe Alonzo and John Cruz. Butcher and Blade pick up the win. Pretty solid, get the talent over match. Pretty hard-hitting, pretty vicious. It's really good to see Butcher and Blade back in action. I'm glad that they are kind of getting them back in the mix. It took, they got Private Party back in the mix. They were getting, I'm saying Jungle Source. They're getting Lucha, and now I'm trying to say Luchasaurus. But Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, they're trying to get Jungle Express back in the mix. They were trying to build these tag teams back up. One team that kind of seemed as though they didn't just fall by the wayside, but were completely being ignored was Butcher and Blade. So it's good to see Butcher and Blade moving back in, getting them into the mix of things. Always good to see. I want to see where they go with them because they kind of seemed as though they were overlooked in that Young Bucks situation because that segment was not really about Butcher and Blade getting mad at the Young Bucks, but more about the debut of FTR. And as we will see on, I think it was Dynamite, they set up a match for next week with FTR and Butcher and Blade. So that'll be kind of cool to see how... obviously we're expecting FTR to win if it's going to be their debut match in AEW. So you kind of feel bad for Butcher and Blade having drawn the short end of the stick. At the same time, it'll be interesting to see where Butcher and Blade go forward with this because before they were affiliated with MJF, they seemingly have lost Allie. What's going to be the move going forward for them? I think they have a kind of an interesting character set or an interesting idea behind them, especially if the Dark Order is not going to be as dark-ish as they were before. It's more of a corporate kind of darkness to it. It's a little difficult to explain, but Butcher and Blade kind of have more of that, or can have more of that horror aspect to them as characters, and I'm interested. I think that might be a thing that they go forward with. I know they've been dressing in white as opposed to black, kind of more of a, I don't want to say gentlemanly character. It's more of just an older 1800s, at least that's what it evokes in me, like an 1800s kind of sense or feel. So I want to see how they build upon that, whether they are going to kind of go back to the horror aspect or whether they're moving forward. And what's going to be really important, as we talked about last week, is how does Allie fit into all this? So last week we had Allie come out to distract or at least interfere kind of with QT Marshall. This week, the Natural Nightmares are in the main event versus Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon. And we see that when they do a segment with Goldie, with Dustin and Brandy, that they haven't seen QT. QT pulls up in a blue Corvette with Allie behind the wheel, not the wheel, but in riding shotgun. And they're like, "What did you?" And he's like, "I bought a car." And Allie liked the color. Allie helped me pick it out. And Brandy kind of makes fun of him with the midlife crisis kind of thing. But what is going on with Allie's involvement in this story? We haven't really heard too much from her, which will change in the main event. But we haven't really seen why exactly she is involved in this sense that they could have used anybody else, right? They could have used another female talent, but they went with Allie, who was with Butcher and Blade. Blade being her husband. Now they're doing a storyline where Allie has some kind of interest in QT Marshall, and we don't really have a proper explanation for it yet. I want to see where they go with it. Whether or not this is going to involve Butcher and Blade, whether it's a long con, that'll be something kind of cool to see, especially because it'll be something good for Dustin to be involved in, because if Dustin and QT are losing to Butcher and Blade, it's going to help Butcher and Blade get over, and it's kind of fitting the role of what Dustin's supposed to be. Dustin's supposed to pick up wins, yes, but Dustin's also, more importantly, supposed to help other people get over, and that's an important facet of his job. Speaking of that, we have our next match is Christy Janes over Kylan King. This is a match where we have two people who are the quote-unquote enhancement talent that have been brought in facing each other. Christy Janes picks up the win. Whether or not this means that Christy Janes is going to be signed by AEW going forward and Kylan King isn't, I don't know. But it's an interesting thing to see where exactly they might fit in for the future. The AEW women's division has strengths, but it also has weaknesses. Like, you have great characters in Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida and Penelope Ford, but, well, Penelope Ford's character is more tied with Sabian and all that. But there's also weakness in the level of how green some of these people are. Penelope Ford's still very green. We haven't had Riho in a while. We haven't had Yuki Sakazai, whose name I'm still butchering probably. We don't have a lot of the talents. They're working Big Swole back into the mix, right? And Big Swole is a talent. But having all those people mesh together properly and be able to build chemistry with each other and build a women's division is tough. And maybe that's going to be something that they try to rectify or address with signing Christy Janes, Kylan King, or both. We know that they signed Anna Jay. Got to see where they go with this. After this match, we have Pride and Powerful versus Big Game Leroy and EJ. EJ's the guy, if you've been watching BTE, he's the guy who, when Private Party have been doing their segments, he's like, yeah, guys, it's EJ. I live here. This is my house. And Big Game Leroy was the guy on the Switch during the last BTE episode. This is a pretty fun little match. Pride and Powerful win. I wasn't expecting Leroy and EJ to pick up the win, but good match for what it was supposed to do. These are also New York talents, so good to see that. I don't know if they have a connection with Battle Club Pro. Josh Morera would know, I would not. But if they do, always great to see that there's that connection with promotions around the country, right? All these enhancement talents or indie talents are coming from somewhere, and that's an important thing for AEW to build upon, is their relationships with indie wrestling. They have that relationship with bar wrestling, maybe with Joey Ryan. They definitely have that relationship with freelance. Robert Anthony has been there. They did really have a stronger one because Kylie was signed there for a while. Maybe they lost something when Kylie decided to leave, but now they're trying to build that back. We'll see how all of these different things shake out. And our final main event match is Natural Nightmares versus Brandon Cutler, Peter Avalon. This is a interesting match in that Cutler and Avalon are really trying to pick up that win, but they're going to pick up losses. So either way, they stay tied. Neither one gets a win before the other one. That would actually be kind of funny if down the road they pick up a tag team win, and that's how they both get their first wins, and then they have to look at each other and be like, how do we say that the other one is worse because we both just picked up our win together? But yeah, it's not about the destination. It's the friends you make along the way, right? But Natural Nightmares pick up this win. Allie is on commentary. I hope they continue to do that with matches with her and QT Marshall. Marshall is definitely kind of being distracted when he is pandering more to Allie to try to impress her. And after this match, they do a backstage segment where QT is clearly more interested in talking to Allie and celebrating with Allie than he is with Brandy and Dustin and talking about the match they just won. Whether that continues or not, we will see. But we will see that together next week when I come to you guys to cover AEW Dark, NWA Powerrr, and now Impact Wrestling. We're going to have much larger shows, I'm assuming, especially if and when Powerrr comes back for sure. Carnyland, forever in our hearts. Maybe the reason why they had to go away this week is because they needed to figure out all of the many candidates, people who are going to run for mayor, Who knows who we will see, who will be interested in running for mayor of Carnyland. Maybe it'll be Tim Storm. He did bring that up during the interview he had with his mother. Whoever is in the front running, we will be there giving you all of the news that you need when Carnyland decides 2020 as to who will be the mayor. And until next time, guys, stay safe. In all seriousness, I'll just take a few moments to say that my heart goes out to the family of George Floyd. I am a lawyer, so I do know a good bit about the law, not a lot. It only, you only get prepared so much when you're in school. Everything else you learn as you go along. And I will say that I'm beyond happy that those police officers have been charged. This is not a problem that can be resolved with convictions for those 4 officers. It's a larger problem. And here in Chicago, it's a very large problem. We have had many police brutality issues. We have had Laquan McDonald, 16 times he was shot. I saw those protests. I saw Black Lives Matter protests literally outside of my apartment back in 2016. I walked around while all of that was going on, could see what was going on. You could feel the pain. All of us are true heroes. We stand with Black Lives Matter. We want everybody to be safe, though, while they're doing these protests. The protests are needed. Whether you want to argue riots are what need to be done or not, at least we can all agree that protests are what is needed. And these things can turn violent. If you are going to protest, more power to you. But just remember to be safe, be careful, and I want to be able to share all of the wrestling that happens on Tuesdays with you guys. So until next time, be safe, be careful, and I'll talk to you.